Not everyone is going to get along, and disputes can happen over petty things, but sometimes those petty disputes turn into violent murders.
Say hello to my little friend!
On occasion, people can get on each other's nerves over silly things, and while those things can be completely trivial, those same arguments can turn the calmest person into a cold-blooded murderer. Today, we'll be looking at the strangest cases of people who murdered someone else over the weirdest reason. These are the 10 most bizarre motives for murder. Number 1 are concert tickets. When people say that they'd kill to see their favorite artist in concert, sometimes they aren't kidding. And that's just what happened in March of 2008 when 39-year-old Robert Lyons from Chicago, Illinois, murdered his 61-year-old mother Linda in cold blood. Robert's murderous rage was brought on by his mother's refusal to buy him expensive seats at an Avril Lavigne concert. Yes, Robert was so angry about not being able to see Lavigne's show that he hit his mother over the head with a bottle of cognac and then proceeded to stab her 9 times until she was dead. But it didn't end there, because once she hit the floor, the deranged man decided to pour household chemical products all over her body, including drain cleaner, tile cleaner, and insecticide. And afterwards, Robert calmly drove to a bookstore, bought a book, and then drove around for hours until he finally confessed to police. Soon after, he was arrested at a nearby Hooters restaurant and was later sentenced to 40 years in prison for the murder. Number 2 is being in the Matrix. In July of 2002, 48-year-old Tonda Lynn Ansley of Hamilton, Ohio, killed her landlord by shooting her in the head multiple times. The reason? Ansley believed that she was living in a fantasy world. She believed that she was being brainwashed by not only her landlord, but 3 other people that she knew, all of whom were not real human beings, but instead computer programs. That's right, Tonda was convinced that she was actually in the Matrix. When questioned, she said that she thought her experience of killing a woman was just a computer simulation created by sentient robots. Unbelievably, Tonda was not found guilty of the gruesome murder by reason of insanity and went to an institution instead of prison. But shockingly, she was not alone in using this defense. In fact, several other murderers have used what is now referred to as the Matrix defense in court over the years to try to get away with their crimes. Number 3 is a TV remote. While some people think that they're in a fantasy world, others are sound of mind when it comes to the decisions that they make. In February of 2011, 13-year-old Alexander Zajac from Russia got into a heated argument with a 17-year-old sister, Juliana. Like typical siblings, the pair were arguing over the possession of the television remote and ultimately which program that they were going to watch. However, the argument took an unexpected and deadly turn when a frustrated Alexander stormed off, only to return with his hunting rifle. In a disturbing and sudden turn of events, Alexander shot his sister square in the face at super close range, killing her instantly. Though he admitted that he had done the crime, police could do very little as he could not be charged for the murder due to his young age. Number 4 are speed bumps. In June of 2010, 48-year-old Fairfax County, Virginia resident Stephen Carr had been pleading with the local government to deal with cars that had been racing down his road far too fast. He finally got them to install a speed bump near his house, and while many of his neighbors seemed to support the move, one neighbor in particular was greatly annoyed. That neighbor was 44-year-old David Patton, who violently confronted Carr about it one morning in his own front yard. Patton was arrested and charged with misdemeanor assault for the confrontation, but soon after being released to await his trial date, Patton decided to go back and break into Carr's house to get revenge. He tied up Carr and his girlfriend at gunpoint, and when Carr tried to escape the ties, he shot him, killing him instantly. Carr's roommate arrived home to witness the situation and was able to distract Patton long enough that both he and Carr's girlfriend were miraculously able to escape. Patton was again arrested and charged, this time with second-degree murder, all over a speed bump. Number 5 is being teased. On October 3rd, 2012, 16-year-old Shakira Dorsey was beaten to death by a fellow 16-year-old female classmate while outside their apartment complex in Warrensville Heights, Ohio. The deadly brawl was caused when Dorsey apparently teased the other girl for simply passing gas and was soon after physically attacked over the jokes. Disgustingly, a number of people stood by and watched the fight happen, many of them adults. One of them was Dorsey's own stepfather, who waited until she had taken quite a few punches before finally stepping in and breaking up the fight. Witnesses say that Dorsey stood up and walked around dizzily around the lawn before eventually passing out and landing on the grass, where she soon died. The other girl, whose name is protected because of her young age, was charged with manslaughter. Number 6 is a free breakfast. On October 23, 2010, 15-year-old Joshua Davies convinced his ex-girlfriend Rebecca Aylward to meet him in the woods just outside their village in Wales. The two had broken up after dating just 3 months, but since Josh was academically gifted and a churchgoer, both Rebecca and her mother Sonia were ecstatic about the idea of the two getting back together. However, once Rebecca arrived at the spot where they were supposed to meet, Josh approached her from behind and bashed her skull in with a rock. But what's truly disturbing is that several days before the murder, Josh fantasized with his friends about killing her and actually asked what they would do if he actually went through with it. His friend jokingly replied that he would buy Josh breakfast if he did it. It was discovered on Josh's phone just 2 days before the murder that he texted that friend, "You may just owe me a breakfast." After going through with the murder, he later proceeded to give his friends chilling details of his actions afterwards, and even showed them the body, making sure to tell his friend that he wanted his free breakfast. He was ultimately found guilty of the murder and was sentenced to 14 years in prison. Number 7 is texting in a theater. If you've been to a movie theater, you've likely seen the ads to turn your cell phone off because it can be distracting to other people. How distracting? Well, someone figured enough to kill over. On January 13th, 2014, 43-year-old Chad Olson was sitting in a theater in Wesley Chapel, Florida, watching the movie Lone Survivor with his wife. Periodically, during the preview screening, he pulled out his phone to text his 3-year-old daughter, who was at home. However, seated behind him was 71-year-old retired Tampa police captain Curtis Reeves Jr., who quickly became annoyed by the light from the cell phone that Olson was using. Now, originally, he had politely asked Olson if he could stop, but when Olson refused, claiming that they were only the previews, an argument broke out. Olson then became aggressive, throwing popcorn at Reeves while yelling. That is when Reeves pulled out his gun and shot Olson in the chest, killing him instantly and wounding his wife in the hand. Although he murdered a man for texting, Reeves claimed to the police that the shot was fired in self-defense. Number 8 is unfriended on Facebook. On January 31st, 2012, in Mountain City, Tennessee, 23-year-old Billie Jean Hayworth and 36-year-old Billy Clay Payne were murdered in cold blood, all because they unfriended someone on Facebook. That someone was 30-year-old Janelle Potter, who, after moving to the city in 2005, had a lot of trouble making friends. Now, Janelle had numerous health problems, which caused her to spend most of her time in her parents' house, relying on social media for friendships. But one day, after a disagreement online, Billy Clay and Billie Jean sent Janelle angry messages and even unfriended her from Facebook. That's when Janelle's father, Marvin, and her boyfriend, Jamie, hunted down Hayworth and Payne, shooting them both. But the circumstances get even more disturbing, as it turns out that Janelle had used fake Facebook accounts to bully herself online and even coaxed her loved ones into committing those murders. Her and her family were charged with first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. Number 9 are Mondays. Many people hate Mondays, but one person let it get the best of them. It was a relatively normal day in San Diego, California on Monday, January 29th, 1979. That is, of course, until 16-year-old Brenda Spencer started shooting at kids outside Cleveland Elementary School. The school happened to be right across the street from her house, so she decided to grab her semi-automatic Ruger rifle. Starting by killing the school's principal and custodian, she moved into classrooms, injuring 8 children and a police officer. She then holed up in her house, talking to a journalist over the phone before eventually surrendering to police. When the reporter asked her why she would do such a horrible thing, she chillingly told them simply, "I don't like Mondays." Spencer was tried as an adult and was convicted of 2 counts of murder and assault with a deadly weapon. Today, she is still serving her indefinite life sentence. And number 10 is celebrity obsession. Born on May 29, 1955, John Hinckley Jr. quickly developed a love for Hollywood star Jodie Foster after he saw one of her earliest movies, the 1976 Scorsese crime drama Taxi Driver. Hinckley's unnatural obsession led him to stalk the actress and repeatedly attempted to make contact. However, having no luck doing that, he decided the only way to meet her was to become famous as well. And to him, there was no better way to become famous than becoming infamous. On March 30th, 1981, Hinckley decided that he would accomplish this by taking a revolver to the Hilton Hotel in Washington, D.C. and attempting to assassinate President Ronald Reagan. As the American president was leaving a conference there, Hinckley fired 6 times. But he only managed to injure Reagan along with a police officer and a Secret Service agent. Who he ended up killing was Press Secretary James Brady. After the shooting, Hinckley was arrested but was found not guilty by reason of insanity. He was confined to St. Elizabeth's Hospital in Washington, D.C., but was released on September 10th, 2016 to his elderly mother's care. So, those were the 10 most bizarre motives for murder. But as always, I want to know from you, do you know of another bizarre murder that happened that deserves to be on this list? Leave your response below because I'll be reading through them and I'll pin the best comment to the top. Thank you so much for coming by today. If you enjoyed this, make sure you hit that like button and remember to come back tomorrow at exactly 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time because I'll have a brand new video for you. See you then.